Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how I managed to go on so many holidays for under £100 each time, and especially as a student, like, this is very important. I think budget travel is the way if you want to travel loads as a student. I'm super lucky because I've actually ended up traveling so many different times during my time at university, including the last 3 months of my masters. I've been to 3 different places, so that's 1 place each month, which is crazy, but that's how I live my life. I'm just permanently busy. This has obviously been a very highly requested video, especially after I put up a few TikToks sort of saying that I'd been to all these places for under £100. For example, I'd been to Budapest for £69, and I'd been to Palermo the month before for, I think it was £86. And then I also went to Copenhagen, can't remember exactly how much that was, but that was also definitely under 100. So yeah, I'm very lucky to travel so much, and this is all about priorities though. Like, obviously this is sort of what I do. During term time I sort of work and save up for travelling, and then just like randomly travel on certain weekends. That's how I sort of guide my life. So it's not to everyone's taste, but here are a few tips if you want to sort of do the same and get as many trips as you can for under £100. So number 1, the first thing we're going to cover is where to go and when. Generally I try not to choose a destination until I'm looking at flights. It's very linked to flights and deals going on in that regard. I normally look for where the deals are, what's in low season. So for example, I went to Palermo in November. That's very low season for tourists. There was like hardly any tourists around, and it actually was such an amazing trip because we went to all these incredible sites. It was still sunny, it was still warm, and nobody was there. So as I say, I think it's best to just not have an idea of a particular city to go to. Maybe just have like a region, like an area that you'd be looking at, like, I don't know, Eastern Europe or more southern Mediterranean area, and then look for flight deals correlating with that. So number 2 obviously is going to be finding the flights. Now this is probably the first step in my journey of looking for my cheap trips. Generally I try and keep on top of the Ryanair website, checking it as many days as I can, pretty much daily to be honest at this point, because they have some insane deals, especially in the less popular months such as like February and November. They have these like crazy deals where you can get flights as cheap as like £1.99. I've seen them. Generally the trend at the moment is £4.99 for their deals in low season, which is pretty good because you can get a return flight for £10, which is mad. So this is actually how I booked the Palermo trip. That was in a Boxing Day sale, I believe. And then for Budapest was actually on their Black Friday sale. And those flights ended up costing us £20 each, so £10 each way. I now almost get a bit shocked if flights are more than sort of like 20 to 30 quid, which is crazy. And that's not like real. But yeah, no, it was obviously just now an expectation that I just don't want to travel for anymore. It is really important to remember though that this is with Ryanair. So they only allow you to bring 1 cabin bag. I don't even know if it's actually called a cabin bag anymore, but it's basically like a rucksack that you can put under the seat. You can't go in the overhead lockers, and basically they've kind of restricted that size quite a lot. So I have this travel rucksack which I use for all my travels, and I've never had an issue with it. It is really good because then you cut down on how much you take, and you don't bring like excess stuff that you really don't need. You just take exactly what you need, which is perfect in my books. So yeah, my best top tip is just to keep up to date with flight deals. I think Ryanair is a very good place to look at, and also Skyscanner. Skyscanner generally find the best flights for certain dates, or they'll recommend you cheaper options if you go to like months. So you can choose to go anywhere, or I think it's called everywhere, and then you just allocate a month, and it'll tell you the cheapest flights for a random time during that month, which is like pretty cool because then you could literally go somewhere for like 4 quid. Number 3 is accommodation. So obviously if you booked your flight somewhere, then you obviously need to be booking some accommodation whilst you're there. I'll work up from the cheapest options as to where I look at. So generally if I'm travelling on my own, or I'm travelling with someone who is open to looking at hostels, then obviously I try and book a hostel. I don't feel a massive need to have luxurious rooms and things while I'm travelling, because generally I don't really spend much time in those rooms, to be perfectly honest. I'm walking around the city having a look at all the sites. So for Copenhagen I actually stayed in a shared 6-bed girls room, and I think that was pretty much under, I think I got it for £18 a night. Don't quote me on that, but And that was in September as well, so that's like, you know, still a relatively popular time to go. People always laugh at me when they say like, oh, Scandinavia can be actually quite cheap. You just need to know where to look. And it was in a hostel that was really quite centrally located, and a lot of people were there, and I really enjoyed my time there, and it was really good. Like, there was no issues with the dorms, like all the girls in there were lovely, just had a really nice time. So yeah, I'd highly recommend hostels because they are just such a great place also to meet people. Met quite a few friends when I was solo traveling, so that was really, really lovely. Obviously a step up from this is going to be Airbnb in terms of price point. I generally find that they're a bit cheaper than like hotels. So for instance, we used Airbnb to get our lovely apartment in Budapest, and it was actually an apartment that I think slept 10 or 12, and there was only 6 of us going, and it ended up working out to be about £40 per person, which is pretty good. So was pretty excited about that. Emma was behind that amazing find, so credit to her. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, there's so many options in these cities, and sometimes even if it's more expensive to get there, say for like if you're traveling further afield to like Southeast Asia, you can actually get some really decent Airbnbs for quite low priced. The final step up from this, if I'm looking for somewhere a bit bougier or somewhere just a little bit nicer, and I often find that I book this sort of thing for, say, like Paris, like a nice hotel that has like a nice balcony, something that I just think I want a bit more of a nicer room for. Then I'd look at booking.com. Again, they have some really good options. It would be pushing it for the under £100 limit, as some of the prices for those hotels do go up quite steeply. But the benefit with booking.com is that you can cancel up to like 24 hours before you go, and you can even get it that they won't even take the payment out until you're at the hotel, which I find quite helpful, especially if you haven't quite got the money yet. Finally, number 4, I just wanted to cover some other expenses to do with the trip. So obviously this is £100 for flights and accommodation. This does not include the extra stuff, because I think that is very subjective and very much like per case and per person, especially with the moment with COVID and PCR tests and lateral flows and stuff. Like, it's really hard to just definitely say that that's definitely going to be under 100. Obviously the spending when you're out there is purely up to you. I know that you could probably do a trip for under £100, say to Budapest, because I bought lunches for £2 and under. But you can also be excessive, and we did go out to a nice restaurant where we ended up spending £25. So it is purely up to you as to what your budget is. Generally, I try not to limit myself too much when I travel. I try to give myself a bit of a bigger budget, so I probably would take between £100 to £200, just so I can eat out a bit more and feel like I can just do nicer things if something just like randomly, you know, came to me. For instance, when we went to Budapest, like, we just saw that the baths were open, so we were like, oh, let's go to the baths, and that was £25 per person. And then after, we were like, oh, let's go ice skating, and that was about £8 per person. So it's good to have a bit of a budget to be able to like spontaneously do stuff, because I don't think it's necessarily the best way to travel to just like always do it just completely cheaply, and you never really end up like getting the proper culture of the city. Like, I want to try the local foods and things like that, and often it just does mean that you just have to pay a bit more. But I still think having a budget of £100 to £200 per trip is alright, you know. Another thing to consider is travel insurance. Probably not a lot of people really think about that, and believe me, I think I've kind of forgotten about it quite a lot, because not a lot of them cover COVID cancellations and things like that. I find it very stressful trying to read through the fine print, because I don't actually know what they're trying to do or say, or, you know. But I think it is quite important just for like medical things. I think that's generally the reason why I get it, just in case I have an accident while I'm traveling. I think it's very helpful. I've got my, I think it's called a global e-hit card. I don't think it is an e-hit card. It's global health insurance card, basically. So I take that with me everywhere I go. So definitely check that your e-hit card and your global health insurance card is up to date or whatever. Take that with you, because it does give you some discounts or something, just in case you need an ambulance, which I hope you never need, but still, it's always good. Finally, I just thought I'd touch on COVID tests. I know it's a very frustrating part of travel right now, and that is just unfortunately part of it. I think I'd rather be safe than sorry, and I think, you know, obviously international travel and airports and things like that could be hotbeds for spreading COVID, so totally understandable that we do need tests. I found a few really good ones online, and so I think I've only really spent like maximum, I think going to Budapest I spent 38 quid on a lateral flow to take out with me, and then a PCR coming back. So it really wasn't that bad actually. So I do think the test prices are going down. I can try and leave the links to those below if I can find them, because they are really helpful sites and they are very good. But yeah, it's just another thing to consider at the moment on top of your normal travel costs. It's very frustrating, but honestly, having been sat here for 2 years in lockdown, I have wanted nothing more than to get away. And you know what, if I'm paying an extra 38 quid for tests, I don't mind. I really, really don't mind. Obviously, all of this is subjective. It's totally up to you what you want to do and where you want to travel. Not everyone can necessarily afford to travel every month. I'm very lucky. I have a really nice job. So I am fortunate in the fact that I do have a decent income with that, especially on the side as being a student. This does primarily fund my travels, I can't lie. So I'm very grateful for the job, but also grateful for having friends that want to come with me. And now just being able to travel, to be completely honest, you know, it might shut down again. We might have to go into more lockdowns and things, but I just think, you know what, make the most of it while you can, and I'm very grateful to have travelled for these past few months. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I will be doing a video soon on how exactly I balance my time with travelling and doing a master's degree. So if you want to hear more about that, then subscribe, and yeah, leave a like, a comment, any questions you might have, and I will see you very, very soon. Alright, bye!